Imagine, for a moment, a bank heist. What picture pops into your head? Maybe a masked figure, silhouetted, maybe an alarm light flashing, a heavy vault door creaking open, coins spilling out, that classic getaway car screeching off. It's iconic, right? That image. But what if I told you today's biggest, most audacious heists? They happen with, well, zero masked intruders, no physical vault, often no sound louder than maybe a server humming somewhere, just numbers changing on a screen, billions just vanishing, and the culprits. Invisible, miles away. You never see a face, never hear a voice.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just, listing facts. We're taking a journey, a deep dive into the shadowy, honestly fascinating, sometimes pretty scary world of cybercrime heists. We're going to trace how they evolved from, almost innocent beginnings to these huge multi-billion-dollar events shaping our world now. Think of it like charting how crime moved off the dusty roads, bandits and stagecoaches, onto these complex digital networks we all live on. Our mission, to unpack the history, the psychology behind it all, and the huge impacts these invisible thefts have.
We're pulling out the key stuff from our sources to really help you get a handle on this critical topic. So if you ever wondered about the unseen forces online, or maybe just why your bank keeps telling you, change your password again, well, you're definitely in the right place.
It really is a compelling area. And unsettling too. What we're digging into today, it challenges, fundamental ideas about wealth, security, even justice. These aren't just stories about stolen cash. They reflect human ingenuity, the good and the bad, right? And our vulnerabilities in this digital age. And just how fast technology keeps racing ahead. One thing that really jumps out is how the history of this kind of crime is just so tightly woven with the tech it exploits. We'll definitely cover some surprising shifts, like state-sponsored attacks, geopolitical moves, really, and the complexity of crypto heists. That's the real cutting edge of this invisible war. It's a journey that shows how crime itself mirrors, and sometimes even pushes technology forward.
Okay, so let's unpack that journey, that line from old-school bandits to today's digital thieves. They're just the battlefield change. For centuries, right, humans have found ways to take risks for reward. Illicit gain. It's always been there. Pre-digital. Think about stealing big. Guarded stagecoaches, right? Gold bouncing across plains. Highwaymen. Then those huge iron-vaulted banks. Fortresses. Needed planning, force, specialized skills to crack. The risk was physical. Right there. Immediate. But the digital revolution, it completely flipped the script. Late 20th century, stealing literally moved. From dusty roads, smoky saloons, into quiet server rooms, glowing screens, network cables. It's quite a transformation, really, how people take what isn't theirs.
And the why behind that shift is so important. Understanding why it happened. Before, like you said, you had to be there. Physical barriers, locks, guards, concrete. But interconnected computer networks, that created vulnerabilities that just didn't exist before. Totally new territory. Suddenly, distance, almost irrelevant. Information itself became wealth, and it could be accessed, changed, moved across continents in seconds from a keyboard. This opened up huge opportunities for those, as our sources put it, with that insatiable appetite for risk and reward. The challenge shifted. Not physical force or lock-picking anymore, it became intellectual. Understanding systems, exploiting unseen weaknesses in software, in protocols. It's a fascinating link conceptually. The drive to exploit is the same, but the tools, the arena, the scale, vastly different. Needs a new kind of criminal mind.
And it started almost accidentally, way back, early 70s, the dawn of computer crime. Can you believe a toy whistle from a cereal box could unlock AT&T's massive phone network? Our sources tell us an amazing story. 1971, John Draper, Captain Crunch, and his friends. Young guys, brilliant, curious. Here's the kicker. A plastic whistle from Captain Crunch cereal, it made a tone, exactly 2600 hertz. Why did that matter? Well, 2600 hertz was AT&T's signal. For a free line, ready for a call. So they blew this whistle into the phone, tricked the network switches, bypassed billing, got free long-distance calls, anywhere, globally even. This whole thing, starting so innocently, almost like kids playing, became known as phreaking, phone hacking. It was a crucial early sign. Understand the system's language, its rules. You can get unauthorized access, laid the groundwork for everything else.
It's absolutely striking. It shows how early on people grasped that control over information systems, even basic phone lines, meant unprecedented access, leverage. And that paved the way for bigger digital theft later. Phreaking wasn't about money directly, not at first, but it revealed this fundamental truth. Systems, no matter how complex, have weak spots. Vulnerabilities that someone who understands the inner workings maybe better than the creators can exploit. It was all about reverse engineering, wasn't it? Learning the phone network's language, its signals. Those early phreakers, using simple tools like toy whistles or maybe more complex blue boxes they built, they showed the real vulnerability wasn't always a lock. It was a hidden command, an overlooked frequency. an unauthenticated signal. That insight, it foreshadowed basically all modern cybercrime. Understand how a system works deep down. You can often make it work for you, not how it was intended in lock-in value. They accidentally wrote the rulebook for future cybercrime.
Right. And as tech marched on, so did the potential for, well, more direct theft. We moved from phreaking into the 80s. The first online heists, as we might recognize them. This is when early networks like ARPANET, the internet's ancestor, really started growing. More complex, more connections, setting the stage for digital theft to become real, profit-driven. Our sources point to one of the earliest known bank computer thefts around 1986. And this wasn't some kid in a basement. This was a pretty sophisticated German hacker group. Chaos Computer Club involved, apparently. Known collective, often political. And here's the really impactful part, the bit that shows the new stakes. They didn't just hit a bank for cash. They got into super sensitive networks, NASA, U.S. military systems, and then
sold the secrets
to the KGB, Soviet intelligence. This wasn't just money anymore, it was global politics, espionage, a chilling sign of how digital crime could have massive international consequences.
That's a fantastic point. It wasn't just a tech breach. It was like a geopolitical tremor, showing digital crime could impact global politics, even way back then, in its early days. The 80s, remember, still the tail end of the Cold War. Intense. So the idea of digital info being valuable enough to sell to the KGB, that was a total game changer. Sources say the hackers, led by Marcus Hess, they exploited the way early networks like ARPANET were built. These systems were designed for sharing, resilience among trusted groups, academics, government, so they were built more on implicit trust than, say, strict authentication everywhere. That oversight, understandable back then, created weaknesses. Hess and others exploited them. Simple stuff sometimes. Dictionary attacks on passwords, known software bugs. They weren't just breaking in, they were using the network's own trust against itself. And considering how basic those networks were, then slower, less connected than today what they did, getting into NASA, military systems, selling secrets. Pretty impressive. It showed an early grasp that sensitive info itself had huge value beyond just cash. A scary precedent for espionage that's still incredibly relevant.
Okay, fast forward, 1990s, the age of online banking, this was a huge societal shift. Banks saw the potential, right? Efficiency, reaching customers. They rushed to digitize. Online banking started becoming a thing. And predictably, where the money went, the criminals followed, adapted their game. Our sources point to a real game changer. 1994, the Citibank heist. Vladimir Levin, Russian hacker, you mentioned the audacity, the simplicity. But for 94, $10 million stolen remotely. Must have seemed like science fiction. What was the most, surprising thing about that heist for investigators then, given how primitive things still were?
That's a great question. Sources say it was the sheer remoteness combined with the scale. That's what blew minds. Before Levin, bank robbery meant someone there, physically. Suddenly, an unseen hand, reaching across continents, using dial-up connections, remember that screech, systematically pulling over $10 million from Citibank accounts. The surprise wasn't just the money, it was the how. The vector, totally new. Levin apparently got into Citibank's early electronic funds transfer system, exploited network weaknesses, maybe even used insider info for logins, used dial-up to get into their internal systems. Then, crucially, he studied their financial messaging, specifically the early SWIFT system. Used that knowledge to authorize fake transfers. It was a huge turning point. Showed banks were vulnerable remotely, changed the whole picture of a bank robber, forced everyone to rethink what a security perimeter even meant. This raises an important question. How did this kind of attack start eating away at public trust in online banking, which was just starting? And how did it force banks to scramble to upgrade security fast? Suddenly, the threat wasn't the front door. It was an invisible hand in the digital vault. Banks had to pour money into encryption, firewalls, authentication, playing catch-up.
And things just kept accelerating, didn't they? Into the 2000s, moving from hackers to cartels. This decade, an explosion. Cybercrime became a global business, highly organized. We saw all of these new tools become household names, unfortunately. Malware, phishing scams, tricking people, online fraud hitting everyone. But it wasn't just individuals anymore. We saw these sophisticated, hidden underground markets spring up on the dark web. Not just shady forums, central, anonymous hubs for illegal trade. One of the most famous, infamous maybe, was Silk Road, launched 2011, a pioneer. That site and others like it, they handled everything. Drugs, stolen data, malware tools, even hiring hackers. Really showed the sophistication, the specialization of these underground economies. A whole ecosystem for crime.
Absolutely. The 2000s marked that critical shift from maybe individuals driven by ego, curiosity, to organized professional operations. In many ways, yeah, they started looking like traditional cartels. Structure, specialization, global reach, complex hierarchies, different jobs, even customer support for their illegal services. The business model got really sophisticated, not just stealing money directly, They built whole economies around selling stolen data, credit cards, identities, company secrets, developing and selling malware like ransomware, building botnets, armies of hacked computers for attacks, handling complex money flows, using untraceable crypto, anonymizing tech like Tor, all on these dark web platforms. These weren't simple websites. Encrypted marketplaces on networks like Tor, hiding users. Silk Road pioneered using Bitcoin for payments. Added that layer of untraceability. This created a global, trustless marketplace. Stolen cards, data, malware, services, all for sale. Turned scattered criminals into a professionalized global black market, way beyond a lone hacker.
Then, as the world got even more connected, reliant on digital, another huge disturbing shift. The 2010s, state-sponsored cyber heists. Here, that line between financial crime and, well, actual cyber warfare, it started getting really blurry, scary blurry. Nation-states using cyber tools for money, for leverage. Our sources give a chilling example. The 2016 Bangladesh bank heist, widely pinned on North Korea. This wasn't petty theft. It was an audacious try at stealing nearly $1 billion from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York if they'd pulled it off. Could have seriously shaken the global financial system. The full billion was stopped crazy story by a typo and a transfer request. But they still got away with a massive $81 million. The scale, the strategic intent, it's mind-blowing.
The implications are profound, really unsettling. Challenges traditional ideas of war, national security. When a nation-state allegedly does financial theft on this scale, it's more than crime, it's economic warfare. A way to fund programs, get around sanctions, maybe destabilize rivals, makes these attacks way more than just heists. They're strategic moves. In the Bangladesh case, sources show the precision. The hackers, Lazarus Group, likely North Korean, got in via spear phishing emails, malware attached. Then they spent weeks, maybe months, inside, mapping systems, watching how SWIFT transfers worked. The key vulnerability, weakness in the SWIFT messaging system, specifically the printer, the one that printed confirmations for big transfers. By disabling that printer, they blinded the bank staff. Couldn't see the fraudulent transfers happening in real time. Let them push through huge requests. That small detail, a printer vulnerability exploited with state resources, led to massive financial aggression. It also forced a global rethink on SWIFT security. New protocols, central banks on higher alert.
And this constant innovation in crime brings us right up to today, the 2020s, where the biggest heists are not just invisible, they're wrapped in the world of cryptocurrency and invisible heists. Now, the biggest scores often involve hidden crypto exchanges, DeFi platforms, decentralized finance. Billions can just vanish. In anonymous blockchain transactions, it's a totally different game. Needs specialized knowledge, smart contracts, blockchain protocols, like a digital shell game. Our sources give a jaw-dropping number. 2022 alone, estimated $3.8 billion stolen from crypto platforms globally. Think about that. Billions. Gone. Into the digital ether. Often no trace. Little recourse for victims. Huge challenges for law enforcement trying to follow the money.
Which raises that crucial question. How do you balance the benefits of decentralized finance, and there are benefits, with the urgent need for security? Accountability. The unique vulnerabilities of crypto. They come right from its core ideas. Blockchain is immutable, right? Once a bad transaction is confirmed, it's basically impossible to reverse. Finality. Double-edged sword. Add the pseudonymity, the often complex, sometimes buggy code in smart contracts, the decentralized nature. Recovery becomes incredibly hard, if not impossible. We see specific attacks now. Flash loan attacks. An attacker borrows huge sums, manipulates prices, makes a profit, repays the loan all in one transaction, drains the platform. Or exploiting flaws in the smart contract code itself, just draining funds directly. What this means for the future: finance, regulation. It's this ongoing, complex, high-stakes debate. Decentralization promises freedom from middlemen. But that freedom opens new doors for theft you can't recover from. Regulators are playing catch-up, trying to add safeguards without killing innovation. It's dynamic, often chaotic, forces everyone to constantly rethink risk.
Okay, but beyond the money, beyond the tech chase, these heists ripple outwards, don't they? They're not just about dollars and cents. They fundamentally change trust, fear, how we all behave collectively. Let's dig into that psychological and sociological impact. Maybe start with the psychology of the hacker. What makes them tick? Sources point to different motivations, not always simple greed. Some have this Robin Hood complex, convince themselves they're exposing corruption, taking from the rich, though usually it ends up in their own pockets or funding their own causes. Others, pure thrill-seeking, the intellectual challenge, ego, wanting notoriety. Psychology links this to sensation-seeking, problem-solving addiction, sometimes narcissism.
It's definitely a complex mix, often masked by this psychological distance, looking deeper, behaviorally. We often see something called neutralization theory at play, from criminology. The idea is people committing crimes, especially these invisible ones like cybercrime, they use mental tricks to sidestep their morals, temporarily. These techniques of neutralization let them rationalize, like nobody really gets hurt, banks are insured, or they're a faceless corporation, they can afford it. There's denying responsibility. System was weak, not my fault. Denying the victim, condemning the condemners, everyone's corrupt, appealing to higher loyalties, I did it to expose injustice. This lets them do it without feeling the moral weight they might face to face. And the anonymity online, that emboldens people, allows behavior they'd never consider offline. That screen creates distance, blurs responsibility, the direct impact. The allure isn't just money. Often it's the challenge, mastering systems, the thrill of operating unseen in this vast anonymous space.
And the impact hits victims hard, and society too. Sources describe this unique violation feeling for cybercrime victims. Money's gone, but there's no face, no gun, no sound, no physical confrontation, but still feeling violated. Something taken by an unseen, untraceable force. It's disorienting, personal. So society reacts. We get this heightened digital paranoia. We all live it, right? Constant password changes. Two-factor authentication everywhere. Endless cybersecurity warnings from banks, government apps. We're told constantly, be vigilant. Assume links are bad, emails are traps. Creates this environment of perpetual caution online.
And that pervasive fear, that need for constant vigilance, it slowly chips away at fundamental trust in digital systems, even while we rely on them more and more every single year, which raises that key question. How do we rebuild trust? Maintain it in systems that are inherently vulnerable, often opaque. Especially when attacks keep getting bigger, the ripple effect goes further sociologically. These big unsolved heists, they fuel conspiracy theories, people thinking banks, corporations, governments hide the real losses. To avoid panic, protect reputation, stock prices. This feeds into a collective mistrust. It's a paradox. We depend on these systems for almost everything: communication, shopping, banking, socializing, yet we're always questioning if they're safe, if they're secure. It's this underlying anxiety that now just permeates our digital lives, affects how we interact online, our money decisions, our sense of safety.
Which brings us right to the modern relevance. These heists influence everything today. Politics, pop culture, the economy. Politics first. We hear all the time about alleged Russian, Chinese, state-backed hackers. APTs, they call them, targeting not just Western banks, but critical infrastructure, power grids, water systems, hospitals. It's not just about money anymore, it's leverage. Sowing discord, strategic advantage.
Exactly. The impact on international relations is huge and escalating. We're seeing cyber warfare become this new constant front in global power struggles, often operating in that gray area below open war, attacking infrastructure, financial networks, government data. Not just crime, strategic moves can destabilize nations, disrupt economies, influence elections, erode trust in democracy, all without firing a shot. Forces governments everywhere to rethink defense, spend fortunes on cyber defense intelligence, engage in complex diplomacy to deter these unseen threats, often through attribution, sanctions.
And this reality, it seeps into our culture, pop culture. Movies like Hackers back in '95, shows like Mr. Robot, documentaries, they often glamorize hackers, or at least humanize them, portray them as brilliant, maybe misunderstood anti-heroes, challenging systems, fighting for information freedom, intellectual rebels.
Yeah, the media's role is significant and complex. These portrayals can educate, raise awareness about digital complexities, vulnerabilities, but sometimes, they can romanticize crime, create this complex social narrative. Mr. Robot was praised for technical accuracy, showing real hacking, but the main character, morally ambiguous, made viewers grapple with digital vigilante ethics. The double-edged sword makes it engaging, relatable, but can blur ethical lines, maybe even inspire some people down illicit paths.
And in the news media, those constant headlines, billion-dollar crypto hacks, massive data breaches, it feeds this narrative, doesn't it, that digital finance is inherently unstable, risky, maybe not fully trustworthy. Every new exploit is another warning.
That narrative, whether totally accurate or a bit hyped, it directly hits investor confidence. Public perception of new tech, frequent reports of huge losses, Poly network hack, Axie Infinity, Ronin Bridge, they can scare people away from new platforms, slow down innovation as developers get super cautious, lead to calls for heavy regulation, directly impacts the economy, especially new sectors like DeFi trying to get mainstream trust. The media acts as a powerful amplifier, can swing public mood, investment trends.
And here's what the numbers just get. Truly staggering. The sheer economic hit. Our sources give a figure. Cybercrime costs the global economy an estimated $8 trillion a year. That's based on 2023 estimates. Put that in perspective. That rivals the GDP of major countries. Japan, Germany. It's not a small problem. It's a massive systemic economic drain affecting everyone.
That $8 trillion figure It's like a massive, often hidden, tax on the global economy. It hits supply chains, businesses disrupted by ransomware, data breaches, costly downtime recovery, strains national budgets, governments pouring billions into cyber defense, intelligence, law enforcement just for cyber threats. And crucially, it raises the cost of doing business digitally for everyone. Multinationals, small businesses, individuals, we all bear the cost. Higher security, insurance premiums, direct losses. It's not just the money stolen, it's the systemic cost of protecting ourselves, our digital stuff, in this new reality. And that cost is growing, reshaping global commerce.
Given all this complexity, it's no wonder there are controversies, myths, and lesser-known truths swirling around cybercrime, often pushed by media portrayals. Okay, let's tackle a big myth. Hackers are always lone geniuses, in hoodies, in dark basements, doing it for the thrill. It's such a common image from those movies and shows we talked about.
That image, while compelling, it's largely off the mark. Especially for the big heists, the billion-dollar stuff. The truth. Most major heists are done by organized criminal groups, often structured like companies, or state-backed units with serious resources. These aren't individuals, they're sophisticated operations. Need diverse skills, not just coders. Need social engineers to trick people, money launderers to cash out, intel gatherers to find weak spots, even lawyers sometimes. The scale, the coordination needed to steal millions, bypass security, get the money out, way beyond one person, no matter how brilliant. It's organized crime now, mostly.
And here's something really controversial, almost like fiction. Some cybercriminals, after getting caught serving time, they end up as informants or even government employees, working for the agencies they used to fight. Sounds like a spy movie plot.
It really does. And it sparks major ethical debates about redemption, accountability, but also the pragmatic need for their unique skills. For defense, for intelligence. On one side, justice, punishment for past crimes. Society demands that. On the other, these individuals know a way. Attack methods, vulnerabilities, criminal thinking, their peers' psychology, stuff that's incredibly valuable for national cyber defense. Developing countermeasures, gathering intel on active threats. It really raises that tough question. How do you balance justice with practical expertise, where the greater good might outweigh past wrongs? It's a complex moral calculation governments quietly wrestle with.
Okay, and one last thing, a hidden truth that kind of changes the whole picture of how big this problem is. Many major heists, maybe even ongoing breaches, they go completely unreported by banks, by corporations. You don't always hear the full story.
That's absolutely critical when you try to gauge the true scale. Why the silence? Pragmatic reasons, though controversial. Banks, big companies, avoid reporting sometimes to prevent public panic, mass withdrawals, economic chaos, also to protect their stock price, their reputation. Customer confidence is everything in finance. The reputational hit can cost way more than the direct loss, especially if they think they can fix it quietly, boost defenses. But this lack of transparency, understandable maybe from a business view, makes it incredibly hard for researchers, policymakers, even law enforcement to get a full, accurate picture of the threat. Hinders efforts to build better defenses together. It's a hidden cost, adds another layer of complexity.
When we look at how experts see all this, it's clear there are different takes, right? A range of expert opinions and theories, not just one view.
Definitely. A key mainstream view comes from people like Richard A. Clarke, the cybersecurity advisor. He frames it as a new Cold War, fought with code, not guns. That analogy suggests international relations are increasingly shaped by digital conflict. Espionage, attacks on critical infrastructure, it implies this constant, low-level conflict. Nation-states using cyber tools for strategic gain, stealing IP, destabilizing rivals, all below the threshold of traditional war. It's a fight for digital dominance. Huge implications for security, global stability, geopolitics. But then there's this provocative alternative view. Challenges this standard narrative. Some analysts argue banks, corporations, they actually benefit indirectly, systemically maybe, from the constant threat of cybercrime. The theory goes, the constant fear-mongering about breaches, it pushes consumers, businesses to buy more cybersecurity services, insurance, better digital infrastructure, often sold by those same institutions or related companies. What's fascinating is the idea that even a threat can be monetized in a capitalist system. Keep telling people they're at risk, they'll buy protection. Fuels a massive, multi-trillion-dollar cybersecurity industry. Suggests this complex, maybe symbiotic relationship between the criminals creating the threat and the industry profiting from it. And linking back to psychology. Behavioral theories, especially neutralization theory, come up a lot to understand the internal justifications. Like we said, criminals rationalize. Nobody really gets hurt, banks are insured, or big corporations won't miss it. Might claim they're exposing flaws for the greater good. Even if profit is the main driver, this psychological distancing lets them compartmentalize, carry out huge digital thefts remotely, anonymously, without facing the moral conflict directly.
To really make this concrete, let's revisit a few specific case studies and real-life examples. They really show the evolution, the audacity. We touched on it, but the Bangladesh bank heist, 2016. Prime example, terrifying. That $81 million theft via SWIFT, the system underpinning trillions in global transactions daily.
Right. And the method, worth repeating. Lazarus Group didn't just barge in. Weeks, months inside, learning routines, installed malware targeting the SWIFT terminal, let them send fake transfer requests.
Yeah.
And that crucial final step, disabling the printer. The one printing physical confirmations for big SWIFT transfers. That simple oversight meant staff were blind. Couldn't see the paper trail as fraudulent transfers went out, allowed massive sums to move. Its significance is huge. Seminal case of state-sponsored activity, blurring crime and warfare, using a mundane vulnerability for grand geopolitical financial aims, showed the precision, planning, patience these state actors have.
Then there's Mt. Gox, 2014. A huge pivotal disaster in early crypto days. Over 850,000 Bitcoins vanished. From that Japanese exchange, Bitcoin worth billions today. Billions, not just a loss, a devastating blow to a young industry.
Mt. Gox was catastrophic for early crypto. Shattered trust. At its peak, Gox handled maybe 70% of all Bitcoin trades worldwide. Massive single point of failure. How exactly it happened is still debated. Likely a mix. Bad internal management, weak security, multiple hacks over time slowly draining funds, showed the huge security risks of centralized exchanges. The regulatory vacuum back then. For early adopters. A brutal, expensive lesson. Risks of an unregulated, fast-moving frontier shaped the narrative about crypto instability for years. The sheer scale of loss also hammered home. In this new digital world, billions could just disappear. No physical trace. Caused panic. Desperate calls for better security, oversight.
And one more, truly chilling one. Bridging digital and physical. The Carbonac Gang. Active 2013 to 2018, this group stole over $1 billion through incredibly coordinated attacks, multiple banks globally.
What's fascinating, and yeah, scary about Carbonac, is how they bridged those worlds. Digital to physical. Didn't just steal data, they weaponized it, got deep inside bank networks, used sophisticated malware, Carbonac II, gave them persistent control, often posed as legit admins for months. This deep access let them send commands directly to ATMs, remotely, told ATMs to literally spit out cash at specific times for their mules, ground operatives to collect. Imagine that. Normal street, normal ATM. Suddenly, no card, no visible person. It starts dispensing cash bundles, like a ghost in the machine. An organizational masterpiece, turned a bank's own infrastructure against itself, shows incredible ingenuity, bridging digital and physical, made them one of the most successful cyber gangs ever, a terrifying glimpse of future possibilities.
Clearly, these events are global, and clearly how people see cybercrime. It's not the same everywhere. Let's explore those cultural variations, how we view these digital acts.
Absolutely. Take East Asia, North Korea, for example. Internally, cybercrime linked to state goals, sometimes framed as patriotic duty, seen as a way to generate state revenue, bypass sanctions, advance national interest, blurs lines between crime and state service. The individuals might be seen as operatives, not criminals. Very different cultural context than the West. In contrast, Western countries, heavy criminalization, severe penalties. Yet, like we said, pop culture often romanticizes hackers, anti-heroes, brilliant outsiders challenging powerful, maybe corrupt institutions. Think The Matrix, early anonymous. That sense of digital vigilantism creates this complex situation. Society officially condemns it, but is often fascinated by the perpetrators. Kind of a cultural cognitive dissonance. Ethical lines constantly debated, redrawn. Then you have developing nations. Some communities see hackers differently again, often through the lens of inequality, economic, political, sometimes seen as rebels. Against global economic disparity, powerful corporations, using skills to challenge an unjust system, level the field, draws that interesting parallel to pirates. Celebrated figure sometimes, historically. Challenging maritime powers, colonial forces. If we connect this to the bigger picture, highlight how deeply society's narratives, history, economics shape how we understand, even tolerate, digital crime. Powerful reminder. Justice, even crime, looks different through different cultural, socioeconomic lenses worldwide.
Okay, all this complexity demands a hard look, a critical analysis of digital finance itself, especially with constant cybercrime. Let's weigh the strengths, the weaknesses of the system we now rely on.
The strengths of digital finance. Undeniable. Revolutionary. Speed. Accessibility. Innovation. Transactions fly instantly across borders. Financial services reach more people, anyone with internet, regardless of location. New products, platforms emerge constantly, promising efficiency, lower costs, more inclusion. Powerful, transformative benefits, driving economies, empowering individuals. But the weaknesses, equally stark, deeply concerning. Systemic vulnerability, that very interconnectedness. Its strength is also its greatest weakness. One bad line of code, one obscure flaw, one successful phishing attack on an employee can expose billions. Raises that fundamental question: can we ever eliminate all the hidden keys in our digital locks? Or is vulnerability just inherent in complex, connected systems? The cascading effects of one failure can be catastrophic, ripple across whole systems, hit countless users. Highlights that core paradox of our digital world. Now, maybe one of the most counterintuitive points from our sources, surprising to many, paradoxical benefits to society. From cybercrime existing, this constant relentless threat, it forces continuous innovation in security, drives better encryption, stronger safeguards, advanced threat detection, constant evolution of defenses. Without that persistent, escalating threat from criminals, state actors, the push for better security might not be as urgent, as well-funded, as advanced technologically, in a weird symbiotic way. Cybercriminals inadvertently help make our digital world more resilient over time, pushing cybersecurity boundaries. But the dangers are far more immediate, pervasive, potentially catastrophic. That pervasive threat of trust collapsing in financial institutions could trigger panic, digital bank runs, global economic instability, the ongoing threat of economic destabilization, massive heists, attacks on critical financial infrastructure, even persistent IP theft from companies, and of course, that ever-present shadow of state-level cyber wars. Nations using digital attacks for geopolitical aims, carrying terrifying risks of escalating conflicts in ways we're still struggling to predict. The costs, financial and societal, are staggering, ongoing, demand constant attention and adaptation.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear, isn't it? Cybercrime heists are way more than just stories about stolen money or clever code. They're like mirrors of our era, reflecting our incredible tech power, yes, but also our deepest vulnerabilities as a society that's gone all in on digital. They show the fragility of systems we trust implicitly. Banks, governments, personal data, our identities. They show that persistent human hunger for power, challenge, notoriety knows no borders. And the enduring myths we build around rebels, outlaws, whether they rode horses or tapped keyboards. In many ways, yeah, today's hackers are the train robbers of the digital frontier. Methods unseen, impact often silent, but just as profound. They're forcing us all to confront some really unsettling questions as we dive deeper into this hyper-connected future. Questions about wealth, trust, maybe even reality itself.
And these are profound questions, really essential for you to think about. Navigating your own digital life. If money now is just code, right? Bits flowing across networks. What truly defines wealth for you in this new world? Tangible stuff. Or controlling that digital information? Can trust the bedrock of society, of secure transactions? Can it truly survive in a world where every digital lock might have a hidden key? Where even the securest systems get breached? Where every digital interaction maybe carries a hidden cost of vulnerability? And as our lives get more digital, tangled in virtual worlds, manipulated information, we have to ask, next century, will the biggest heist be against banks or against reality itself? Our perception of truth, security, in a world built on code, there's always more to learn, more to understand. Engaging with these shifts, these deep questions, absolutely key to navigating our future. Responsibly, securely, we really encourage you to keep exploring these complex issues, reflect critically on your own digital footprint, your security in this constantly changing landscape.